blood of the victims she killed for cake dough, their flesh made into soap, and because she believed that human sacrifice would save her son during World War II. This is the story of the most cruel murderer, Leonarda Cianciulli. Leonarda Cianciulli, who was born on April 18, 1894, Montella in southern Italy, known as one of the most brutal killers in history. Cianciulli was a child born from rape. Her mother, Amelia di Nolfi, was forced to marry her rapist, Mariano Cianciulli, after news of her pregnancy spread. Cianciulli grew up in a poor family. She lost her father and her mother remarried. However, this did not improve her financial situation. Cianciulli was frequently abused by her mother and attempted suicide twice. Against her mother's wishes, Cianciulli married a civil registrar, Raffaele Ponsardi, who was much older than she was. Not following her mother's wishes to marry a rich man, Cianciulli felt that her mother had cursed her marriage. Although it made no sense, she felt that her life was full of misery and suffering. Then, in 1921, Cianciulli and her husband moved to the town of Lauria. From the beginning, they had financial problems, especially since Ponsardi's income was not much. In 1927, she was arrested for fraud and imprisoned. After Cianciulli was released, she and her husband decided to move to Lacedonia, in the province of Avellino, Italy. They hoped that by moving, their lives would improve. However, it seems that their wishes are not as expected. Their second home was destroyed by an earthquake that struck in 1930. Shortly afterward, they moved again to Correggio, a town in the province of Reggio Emilia, Italy. In Correggio, they began to see financial improvement. Cianciulli opened a soap shop. Over the years, Cianciulli had 17 pregnancies, 3 of which resulted in miscarriage, and 10 of her children died at an early age. Cianciulli is very superstitious about fortune-telling, astrology, and palm reading. The fortune-teller warned that, when she got married and had children, they would all die young. This made Cianciulli very protective of her for children. Cianciulli also met another fortune-teller. By reading the lines on her palms, the fortune-teller said that she saw a prison on Cianciulli's right hand and a mental hospital on her left hand. In late 1939, a world war consumed Europe. Leonarda Cianciulli's son Giuseppe told her that he was going to join the Royal Italian Army. Having lost 14 children, Cianciulli feared losing Giuseppe too, so she turned to the one thing that she believed would keep him safe: human sacrifice. Cianciulli decided the only way to save her son was through human sacrifice. The 3 victims were Faustina Setti, Francesca Soavi, and Virginia Cacioppo. It's unclear where Cianciulli got her idea to sacrifice humans in order to save her son from dying in World War II. Roman Catholicism, prevalent in Italy during Cianciulli's life, forbade human sacrifice as an abomination before God. But regardless of where she got her idea, Leonarda Cianciulli would go on to murder 3 women before she was caught. Leonarda Cianciulli's first victim was a spinster from the area named Faustina Setti. After inviting Setti to her home under the pretense of arranging a husband for her, Cianciulli ordered Setti to write comforting letters to her family members. Then, Cianciulli gave Setti a glass of wine mixed with sleeping pills and brutally murdered her with an axe. And then, Cianciulli cut Setti into 9 pieces and gathered her blood into a basin.
I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soap, and stirred the whole mixture until the pieces dissolved in a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied in a nearby septic tank.
She continued,
I made lots of crispy cakes and served them to the ladies who came to visit, although Giuseppe and I ate some too.
On September 5, 1940, Cianciulli found her second victim, Francesca Soavi. Cianciulli also lured Soavi to her home with false promises. She claimed to have arranged a tutoring job for Soavi and convinced Soavi to write letters to friends detailing her travels. Leonarda Cianciulli then drugged Soavi, killed her with an axe, baked her into a tea cake, and stole her money. However, Cianciulli's third victim would be her last. Virginia Cacioppo was a famous soprano who sang at the famous opera house La Scala in Milan. On September 30th, 1940, Cianciulli had promised her a job working with an impresario in Florence, which was enough to lure Cacioppo to Cianciulli's home. Just like the two previous victims, Cianciulli also gave Cacioppo wine mixed with alcohol and then killed her using an axe. But this time, instead of baking her body into tea cakes and giving them to her neighbors, Cianciulli also melted Cacioppo's flesh and turned it into soap.
I gave the soap bars to my neighbors and friends. The cookies were even better. The woman was very sweet.
Although Leonarda Cianciulli may have believed she had committed the perfect murder, she had made a mistake with Cacioppo. Unlike her first two victims, Cacioppo had a very concerned brother-in-law. She did not believe Cacioppo's letters detailing her quick disappearance, and in fact, had seen Cacioppo enter the Cianciulli home that night. Finally, she immediately reported Cacioppo's disappearance to the police. Police investigated Cianciulli. They found incriminating evidence in her home: the missing woman's personal belongings, 3 axes, 2 knives, and a cauldron. Initially, Leonarda denied the allegations vehemently, using her wonderful reputation as a mother of 4 and the town's sweet-hearted old woman to her advantage. Then, the authorities began to assign blame to none other than her beloved Giuseppe. In an instant, her tune changed and she gave a detailed account of what she had done. In 1946, Leonarda Cianciulli went to trial in Reggio Emilia and was found guilty on 3 counts of murder. Her sentence would mirror exactly what the fortune-teller had years before: 33 years in prison and 3 in a criminal asylum. While in prison, Cianciulli was known as a model inmate. She was quiet, calm, and often spent her time crocheting and baking, though no one was interested in trying the cake. She would ultimately meet her demise in the midst of her asylum stay, dying of cerebral apoplexy in the women's criminal asylum of Pozzuoli in 1970. She was 79 years old. This would be after she wrote and published a more than 700-page memoir titled Confessioni di un'anima amareggiata, Confessions of a Bitter Soul. Her body was returned to her family for burial, but her murder weapons, including the pot that her victims were boiled in, were donated to the Criminology Museum in Rome. To this day, visitors can see her collection of axes and peer inside the vat that she used to boil her victims. 86 years after Leonarda Cianciulli committed her first great atrocity, her story remains a horrific tale of how far one can succumb to mental illness and delve into superstition.